Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here today. That may be one of the only times you ever see a colonel introduce a staff sergeant. It's, as Brian mentioned, I'm very proud and recent alum of Warriors and Quiet Waters. And, I experienced through the program firsthand what happens here. The connection, the purpose. There was a little bit of fishing, but it's not really about the fishing. And there's something so much bigger that takes place in these programs and around here. And in a world where so little seems to matter, this does. And I'm so grateful for every single person who makes it possible. In addition to being a proud alum of the program, as was mentioned, I'm a very proud Marine. And I want you to know that myself and the two other Marines in my cohort were on our best behavior. You see, we had a joint service cohort, which is good. It's the way of the world. It's what we do now. And we got along. We had a common bond. But I do think it's important, for the sake of history, to record the fact that it was the Marine Corps that caught the biggest fish. And I'm not saying that the Marine Corps and Marines in general are inherently better at everything. If I had enough time, I might be able to think of something that we're not. But I had good training for my cohort because my family is a joint service family. My little brother was a pilot in the Navy F-18s. Room full of 200 people. Do you know how to tell who the pilots are? Yeah, don't worry. They'll tell you. My cousins served as well, Jeremy, Ben, and Bo. Their last name was Wise, so we always called them the three wise men. And they weren't cousins in the traditional sense of what you think. In the communities we grew up in, they were brothers. We were a crew. Jeremy and I were the oldest in our respective families, and he was my best friend. I grew up, went Marine Corps. He went Navy, became a SEAL. My brother was a pilot. Ben, the second wise brother, he joined the Army. He was a Green Beret. And baby Bo, the youngest, he brought it home strong, Marine Corps infantry. And when we were all home, you can imagine the fierce, full contact, no pad football games that we played. You could get a JCOM just for surviving one of those games. And I think it's important to record for history that it was the Marine Corps that won every single football game. I'm not saying we're the best at everything. But between us, we added up. We did 3,000 days at war. Deployments, homecoming, leaving again. I grew up in the type of community that has always produced warriors. A small, working class town in rural Arkansas. Dirt road, one stoplight that works most of the time. Main Street and Friday night lights. Our school colors were black and white. They always told us that we were too poor to afford color. The local career options were the paper mill or the oil fields. And a lot of people in small towns like mine join the military. They always have. But I didn't join because I lacked opportunity. I joined because I wanted to be a part of something. You see, when I was a kid, the Marine Corps ads had a guy literally slaying a dragon, fighting a dragon. And the ad said, if you can master your fear, outsmart your enemy, and never yield even to yourself, you'll be changed forever. The few, the proud, the Marines. That was it. Sign me up. The ads today are just as powerful. The ads today say there are those among us who run towards the sound of tyranny, injustice, and oppression. Run towards those in need of help. The ad ends by asking a simple question: which way would you run? When I saw that ad, I was already out, and I tried to go back. And the recruiter, about the age of my oldest son, was slightly amused, but very respectful. It turns out they're not taking grandfathers in their late 40s who've already been diagnosed with TBI, PTSD, and have had 17 arthroscopic surgeries. You can't get a waiver for that. He did agree at my insistence, though, that he would hang on to my number just in case something changed. But as was mentioned, I had the dream job in service to my country: counterintelligence, human intelligence, Iraq, Yemen, Somalia, Horn of Africa, some other places you wouldn't normally want to go. I tracked terrorists, I found them, and then we spent some quality time seeing if they might care to tell me about their friends. I fought, and then I came home. And when I came home from the outside, I had what looked like success. I had a career, public life, responsibility, achievement. But inside was a very different story. Horrific combat nightmares. Every night. Hypervigilance, irritability, escapism, alcohol abuse. Beneath the war was severe childhood trauma that I had never dealt with. And after more than a decade of telling everyone or trying to convince everyone I was fine, it all came crashing down. And in that moment, I had a choice. And a lot of men talk about being tough, but being tough requires you to face what scares you the most. I had a dragon to slay, but it wasn't an overseas enemy. It was admitting that I needed help. And it was either do that or wind up down the road that so many of my friends have gone down, trying to find peace down the wrong end of a gun barrel. And through it all, my wife never wavered. And the spouses and the family, they don't get enough appreciation for what they endure, for what we put them through. The support they provide, they're the ones who hold it together when we're gone, or more accurately, when we're home, but we're the ones who can't hold anything together. And my wife did that. And all the spouses and family members did that. And I think we should take a moment right now to thank the spouses, the family members, and those who have been there to take care of all of us. I'll also tell you, my wife is more fierce than any tier 1 cat you'll ever meet. She drove me to the inpatient rehab center in Arizona, and she dropped me off, and they admitted me, and even then I knew she was still by my side. I did a 45-day trauma program that was equine-based, and it turns out that I like horses a whole lot more than I like people. They're wonderful, and it helped. When I got out, I started doing the work: sobriety, AA, I got a sponsor. And for the first time in my life, I called the VA for help. And they told me they could get me a trauma therapist for PTSD. It would just take 14 months. But the next day, they had a psychiatrist who was available to talk to me. And I said, well, let's do that. Let the healing begin. They sent me a Teams link, and that virtual meeting lasted all of 14 minutes if you round up. And then they overnighted me 7 different powerful prescription pills to take. The combat cocktail. The goal seemed to be to make sure that I felt nothing. Just a fog. But despair always finds a way to creep through the fog. And so I ended up in Mexico for a medically supervised Ibogaine retreat. It's a psychedelic. It is some weird hippie shit. I'm not going to lie. But it works for me. No more nightmares. Not one. No more pills. I could sleep. I could feel love and peace. I didn't see everything as a threat. There's sometimes maybe I feel a little too much. All it takes is a good truck commercial to get me teary. If we could just dial that back just a little bit. But that experience got me strong enough to honestly ask, what should the rest of my life look like? I didn't know the answer, but it was time to try and figure it out. And that's when Warriors and Quiet Waters accepted me into their program. Warriors in Quiet Waters mattered in my life because at the exact right moment, it brought me back to my tribe. Combat veterans. Together in nature, no phones, no distractions, fishing, laughing, healing, remembering who we are, remembering why it matters. Because purpose and meaning aren't slogans in this program. You have to do the work. The readings, the guided discussion, the writing assignments, you have to name it, you have to share it, you have to get feedback, you have to refine it. You have to mean it. The entire experience was incredible. Guys opening up and talking, just being together. One of the guys from my cohort, we text each other every single morning. One of us will text, I'm up. The other one will say, he sees me, I'm down. And that might not seem like a big thing, but it is. Because so much of what happens after war is disconnection. We had a mission and then it ended. We had a tribe and then it scattered. We had a purpose. And then you got to leave it all behind. And just figure out what comes next on your own. And we're a group of people in general who can do just about anything, but when we're honest, this part, leaving and figuring it out, it's not easy. Putting meaning behind our service has its challenges. I don't mind what I did and I don't mind what I went through. But I wish it had counted for something more. We're not the greatest generation. We didn't defeat the Nazis. We didn't liberate Europe. Iraq and Afghanistan are more complicated than that. We have more in common with the Vietnam generation, with the significant exception that we were welcomed home. Because of what they went through, our nation learned you don't blame the warrior. And our path was made easier because of each and every one of you. But here's the truth. The political outcome of a war we didn't pick was not our job, nor was it within our control. Warriors win battles, politicians lose wars. We did our part. We answered the call. We carried the burden asked of us, and we didn't do it for politics or geography. We did it for each other. We did it to be of service. We did it for our country. But then you come home to a country that after military service can be hard to recognize. In a world that is so desperate for truth, it's hard to even know what's true anymore. And the way people treat each other. You can't unfriend someone in combat because you don't like something they said or who they voted for. You don't have to agree. If you have a heartfelt point of conviction, don't compromise that, but don't be an asshole about it. Someone else can have just as genuine a position. It's just different. And you can love them, not in spite of the differences, but because of it. And if we actually take time to listen to one another, you might learn something along the way too. Veterans, myself included, we all need to be reminded of this from time to time. And I think there's a part of what our generation of veterans can demonstrate to the world is showing the rest of America that there was something beyond our differences and divisions that held us together that we were committed to. And that something can still exist. But beyond the division, it's hard at times to see a country where it seems like no one wants to sacrifice for anything. We were willing to die for each other. We had to belong to each other. And when that sense of purpose and belonging goes away and you don't see it anywhere. Sitting right in this garden with Colonel Gilman, we talked about significance and coherence and purpose and meaning. And when all of that's gone and you look around, you're unsure what it all meant. That could be a dark and lonely place. In the wars post 9/11, 7,000 Americans approximately died in combat. But more than 30,000 veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan have died by suicide after they came home. more than 4 times as many as we lost in war. Going to war didn't kill most of us. Coming home did. We've all lost someone this way. Probably someone close to us. And the burden of peace is not supposed to be greater than the burden of war. I don't want us defined as a generation that fought America's longest wars but couldn't survive the peace that followed. I believe the defining book of our generation of veterans is Tribe by Sebastian Junger, and in it he explains something that we recognize instantly. Our struggles don't usually start when we're deployed. They start when we come home. And it's not because we miss war. It's because we miss each other. It's because we miss belonging to something bigger than ourselves. We miss having something in our life that matters. And all of us, whether you're a veteran or not, are wired for purpose and shared belonging. And when veterans lose tribe, purpose, and belonging, the damage rarely stops with that veteran. A few years ago, I was sitting at lunch with a very successful attorney. Nice restaurant, white tablecloths, professional setting. I probably even had a tie on back then. He was composed, respected, and accomplished. And somehow the conversation shifted to war and military service. And out of nowhere, he broke down crying. I didn't know what to do. People were looking at us. And he told me about his dad, a decorated Vietnam veteran, who came home one day when he was young and said, "Son, I want you to always know how much I love you." And then his dad went upstairs, closed the door, and killed himself. And decades later, sitting in a restaurant, this man was still carrying that moment. That's the generational cost of war when we come home disconnected, alone, and without help. But it doesn't have to be that way. Compare that with what Warriors in Quiet Waters has done for my family and for my kids. I am teaching my kids to fly fish in a river on our ranch with skills and equipment that this organization gave me. My boys are learning about nature, about patience, about presence and peace from experiences this organization helped create. They get to see the very best of their dad with the purpose that this program helped me outline. That's generational as well. A very different type of inheritance. That's what this place changes. That's what is possible. Because service was never supposed to end when we took off the uniform. The mission just has to change. I mentioned at the beginning about the 3 wise men, Jeremy, Ben, and Bo, Jeremy being my best friend. If you saw the movie Zero Dark 30, you watched Jeremy die. December 30th, 2009. Camp Chapman, Coast, Afghanistan. A Navy SEAL who had gone to work for the agency says the Jordanian source needs to be searched at the gate. He was overruled. In real life, that was Jeremy. In real life, the Jordanian source was a suicide bomber. In real life, they trusted the wrong person. Jeremy died instantly, along with 6 others. After he died, I told his younger brother, Ben, that he had to step up. He was the oldest. He had to be there for his parents, his siblings, Jeremy's family. And Ben did. For 746 days. And then he charged into a cave in Afghanistan and didn't make it out. When you go to war, you fill out forms in case you don't come home. And when we opened Ben's, his only request was to be buried in a service uniform next to his brother. They gave that last full measure of devotion. And we spend a lot of time in this country talking about men like Jeremy and Ben. And we should. Not just on Memorial Day, but every day. But they're gone. That can't be the mission. because Bo Wise is still here. And it's hard on him. And that's where our focus has to be. That's what has to matter. Our mission was to be willing to die for each other, and that mission is over. They're not taking us back. I tried. But that doesn't mean we're done serving. That part still exists. It just needs direction. And the mission now is not to be willing to die for each other. The mission now is to truly live for each other, to show up for your family, to get sober for your spouse. You don't have to run through machine gun fire for your fellow Marine. You just have to call them and text them and show up in person if they don't respond. Remind them that this life still matters. You have to be strong enough to seek and accept help when you need it. And you have to care enough to give that help to others when you're able. That's how we make it matter. That's how we honor those we lost. That's how we show this nation what sacrifice, commitment, and community are all about. And that's what Warriors in Quiet Waters does every single day. At this ranch, around these waters, everyone here has a role. The staff, the volunteers, the alumni. As those who financially support this program, you are a critical part of that mission. And please know that you're not funding a hunting or a fishing trip. You're helping us find our way back to ourselves, to each other. You're helping us remember that this life still has purpose. The Marine Corps ad asks a simple question: which way would you run? And the fact that you're here today answers that question. You're running to those who need help, who need their tribe. And it matters, as does your contribution. Because of what happens here, lives are changed. I can tell you that because mine was. And I am eternally grateful for everyone from the founder to the folks who set up the tents and everyone in between for making this a reality for me and my friends, and I promise to do my part to give back. It's been a tremendous honor to have us join you here today, and I'm so grateful for each and every one of you. Thank you very, very much.